Hey, hi everyone. I know that you've learned how to write a story in primary school, but I want to treat it as a revision, okay? I'll have some reminder about the plot structure and some guiding question for you to think about your own story. So let's begin. Alright, so first of all, I want you to start thinking about what kind of story you want to write. Do you want to write a romantic story, a romance, or an adventure story, a horror story, a thriller, or a western story, or a crime story? So you have to think about it. A war film, okay? Which of this topic actually interests you? Alright? And then after you think of certain direction, you can start thinking about the main character of your story. So there are a lot of characters. They may be good people, they may be villain, but remember, they all have their own story. They all have different characteristic. They have different background, okay? Or they can be superhero, okay? They can be fairy tale. So think about it. Think about all these. The family background, the education background, how do they look like, their appearance, do they have any religion, job, health condition, what do they like, what do they don't like, what don't they like, the personality, how was their childhood, okay, or if they have any relationships, or if they have any weakness. So I want you to take a piece of paper to start brainstorming these items. How is my main character like? Start putting down point form about their appearance, about their personality, about their skills and talent, their health condition, family background. Are they married? Do they have boyfriend, girlfriend? Are they divorced? How educated they are, or they received any education at all? What kind of job uh, do they do? Do they have any relationship with anyone? Uh, it can be job relationship, it can be friendship. You can think about it. Anything that they like or they dislike. How are their social status is like in the society? If they have any weakness, okay. So think about it. Put all these ideas on a paper before you move on to plan your story. Alright, so after you have the genre of a story, the type of story you want to write, you have a main character in your head. Then you can start thinking about the structure. What happened to the main character? Well, I'm sure you've seen plot structure in for many times already before, okay? So I always start with an exposition, how the story begins, and then go to the rising action. What happened? That will lead to the climax, the most important event in the story. And then how is it solved or ended? And then it will come to the following action and resolution. So let's go deep into each of these points. Exposition. What is exposition? It's the beginning of the story. So ask yourself this question. What time is it? What day, what month, what year is it? What season is it? So these at the time would actually affect how the story is developed. Okay, is it present? Is it in the past? Or is it in the future? Think about time setting. And afterwards, where is the main character? Uh, in which country, which city, or a particular location? Okay, think about it. Where is the main character when the story begins? And then, what is the main character doing at that place when the story begins? Okay, is the main character at his own flat, on the street, and in school, in the office? Okay, what is he or she doing? Is there anyone else in the beginning of the story apart from the main character? And what is the relationship between the main character and that character or other characters in the beginning of the story? What are they doing in that scene? And what is going to happen to these people? So these are the things that you have to show to the reader in the beginning of the story. Okay, you don't need to write a lot, okay? And you don't need to tell, you need to show, okay, what happened in the beginning of the story. After you have all these basic information set, then you can start to think about how the story develops. Like, for example, what happens that will lead to a problem? Is there a problem between this main character? What is the problem about? What does the main character do to try to solve the problem but fail? Okay, and then how does people react to the problem? Or how does the main character feel or think about the problem? And what happened when the problem can be solved? So you need to think about these. Okay, there must be some problems, some conflicts that the main character needs to solve or needs to encounter so the story can develop. Okay, and then at a point that it's a very, very important moment in the story. It's the turning point. The problem is worsening, and it comes to a point that either the main characters can solve the problem and then there's a happy ending, or the main character cannot solve the problem and the story is going to end. Like for example, imagine it's a superhero film. So normally at the very end, the superhero needs to battle a boss, I don't know, villain. Okay, so that is the climax. So if the superhero can beat that boss villain, then that will be happy ending. If not, the superhero dies. So this is the climax of a story. And then at the end, normally after the climax, there was still a little bit part at the end of the story to explain a little bit what happened afterwards. Okay, so we'll show if the main character can solve the problem at the end, or how the main character solved the problem, or is there anyone helping them. If the problem can't be solved, what will happen to the main character? Will the main character die? Or will anyone leave the main character? Will it be a sad ending? Or if the main character succeed, will the main character survive? Or what will happen afterwards? So this is what the following action should talk about. Explain what happened to the character after the main problem, after the main battle. And of course, at the end, we have a resolution, the very, very end of the story. How does the story end? Okay, will you choose to leave it as a cliffhanger? You don't want to explain everything about the story? Or think about if you're watching a movie. That would normally be the very, very last scene of the story. That the very last shot the audience can watch at the movie. So how do you want your story to end? Where is it? What time is it? Where is the character? What is the character doing? So you can think about it. That would be a resolution. Okay, so here I want you to take a look at this film. It's called Paperman, and then we'll do an exercise together. I'll explain a little bit about plot structure using this example. So now you pause my video and go to YouTube and look for Paperman, or you go to scan this QR code. Okay, or you scan this QR code and then watch this film first. After you finish watching this animation, come back to my video at this point, and then we'll talk about it. Okay. Alright, so I assume if you continue to watch this part of my explanation, you should have finished watching this this short film. If you haven't, please watch it. If not, you won't understand what I'm going to talk about. Okay, so when you watch this film, Paperman, in the beginning of the story, that's exposition. We can see that the main character is a young man. He is an office clerk. He's on his way to work, so which is the time should be morning, and he is at the train station. So in the beginning of the story, there's an other main character too, this lady. So as an office lady is another character. So we don't know where she is going, but very likely in the morning, maybe she is also on her way to work. So this is the exposition. We know the main character, we know the setting, we know the time, we know the location. And then afterwards is the rising action. So what happened? The story begins. So the story begins with the man, the paper flies to the girl, covering her face with a kiss on the paper, and then the girl leaves. But there's a problem. The boy starts to want to know more about this girl. He misses this girl. So this is the rising action, and the problem begins. The problem is the boy doesn't know who this girl is, but he misses her. He wants to know more about her. So this is the problem. And the story continue, okay? And the boy sees a girl, and then he starts to use the paper planes to get her attention, but fails. So he starts to run to the street and then find the girl. And at a certain moment, the turning point. So of course he fails in the beginning. He couldn't fly the airplane to get the girl's attention, and he couldn't see the girl on the street. So at one point, there's a climax. The turning point is that all the paper planes starts to move, okay, and then guide the way to let the boy find the girl. So this is the climax. So at the end, of course, the ending of the story is that the boy finds the girl at the end at the train station. But since this is a short film, so there is not a lot of following action and resolution to explain what happened after they meet each other at the train station. Okay, but for your story, you can actually include following action and resolution. Think of movies that you've watched, as I've mentioned before, like sometimes in those superhero film, you will see fighting scene at the end, battling the boss villain, the final guy. And so after the superhero wins, normally they will have a short part to explain what happened afterwards. What will the superhero do? Okay. So that would be the falling action, and then resolution will be the final shot of the movie, of the scene. Okay, and in your story, you don't really need to include a falling action or resolution. You can use a cliffhanger if you want. Okay, and just let reader to imagine what's going on. All right, so I hope after listening to my very quick introduction of the plot structure and this example of Paperman, you start to know more about your story, how to write a story. I want you to start thinking about your own story. Think about your main character. Think about your own plot structure, and then write your first draft in a Google Classroom. Okay. All right. See you guys after Easter holiday. Bye.